If you're just tuning in, fast forward about 4 minutes. Let me get started. About 4 minutes. Starting here in a couple minutes. Just waiting for some people to join here. Can you guys hear me? Is the chat working? I don't even know if the chat's working. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Shannon? Anybody? Can you hear me? Can you type in the chat yes or no? Okay, yes, thank you. Hi, the divas. Wald, what's up, man? How you doing? Okay, great. Thank you. Harles, appreciate it. Appreciate the response. Great. Thank you, the divas. Oh my goodness. There are so many people that are coming in and then leaving. Let's see. It jumped from 78 to 57 in like a split second. I don't know if it's way out there. We're gonna get started here in about 1 minute. Hey, how's everybody doing? Harles, the divas, what up? What up, Harles? Thank you guys for joining. Um, we have to talk about some things. What's up, Sharon? My day was okay. Every day's kind of troubling, but I made it so far. So we're gonna get started here. All right, thank you guys for joining. Hey, Rebecca. Rebecca made it. She's here. Awesome. All right, so I like going live because it's easier for me. There's so much information that I really want to put in videos, but I can't. It's just it would take too long. The videos would be too long, and this way I could just jot it down on the board, and maybe you guys could look things up yourself. So much damage has been done to uh, Christians, believers. I mean, not you know, damage in the sense that there's been some really big lies out there that so many have believed. So I don't know if it's damage or just wrong teaching out there. So we know that America was created by the Illuminati. 1776 was the year America was founded, which is the same year that the Bavarian Illuminati was founded. You could just look on the dollar bill, all the symbolism. It says New Order of the Ages. When Columbus got here, they even said that he was looking for a new world, right? New world order. So America had a destiny before it was even created. There was a plan, there was a purpose, and it's all. They even call it the American dream. It's a delusion. So Christianity was created by the Illuminati, by big money. Okay. Um, just think about it. How can you have these major franchise churches? You know, like hundreds and thousands of them. That there's billions of dollars behind this, and I get it that people donate, but that's not how it starts, right? Um, so my point in saying all that is that, um, I, when you go out on your own, when God calls you and He wants you to know the truth, and you seek the truth, you find these things, and that's what I do. I just point them out to you guys, and it's taken me years to get this big of a following, which now my views are regularly over 1,000 or two, which is a whole bunch for me. Because when I started, it was like 50 to 150 views for the first year. So, but all I knew is I knew I was getting it out, and whoever sees it, sees it. So we got to go over some big lies. That's kind of what my channel is about, is sharing the knowledge that I've found to debunk these big lies. A lot of people talk about a lot of different things, but I feel that it's necessary to go after these big lies. That's kind of what I've been about. So one of the reasons that a lot of people can't see the correct timeline, and they believe in a 7-year tribulation or wrath period or half tribulation, half wrath, whatever. All these, you guys have to understand, all these catchphrases and names of times and things like this, it's all made up. Like, some people call it Great Tribulation, Tribulation, Wrath, the Tribulation. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, okay, what people mean is from the rapture, then there's 7 years after. That's what most people mean. And they can't see 3.5, 42 months because of what I'm going to show you guys right now. And I urge you guys again to just read the verses. And this all hinges on, well, there's some people like preterists that believe everything has happened. There is no more prophecy to be fulfilled. And there's a lot of different types out there. But what I want to show you guys is the main thing that this all hinges on, which is Daniel chapter 9. Okay, Daniel chapter 9. Now, Daniel chapter 9 is about, everybody knows, this covenant that's confirmed, right? A confirming of a covenant, right? And like, people have been saying, oh, it's going to be Trump, it's going to be this guy, it's going to be that guy, he's going to confirm the covenant for the 7 years, man. So it's like, no, okay, no. So I'm going to write this down so you guys can see. So go on your own time to Daniel chapter 9. It's all about the chapter 9, right? That's where all this comes from. And you can start in the beginning, but what I want you to look at is verse 4. Daniel chapter 9, verse 4. Okay, King James Bible. And what Daniel 9 chapter 4 gives you is the context of the chapter of Daniel and the covenant. Daniel chapter 9, verse 4, you see Daniel the prophet praying for the covenant. What is Daniel 9 about? The covenant. Daniel was praying for the covenant. Okay? If this is the Antichrist covenant, a covenant of death, right, where they go into another part of the Bible, grab something and pull it over and say, see, it's covenant of death, and they make all these things. Let's understand how we can see, how we're supposed to see this. We need to get the context. What is this covenant? What covenant? Well, if Daniel, the prophet, is praying for the covenant, okay, he's praying for the covenant, the contract between God and Israel. Okay? That whole Daniel 9 is about the contract, the covenant between God and Israel. That's what a big portion of the Bible is about. Okay? So if you go to Daniel 9:4, you see the you see the backbone, what Daniel 9 covenant is about. What covenant is that? Daniel wouldn't be praying for an antichrist covenant of death. No, the whole context of how to see the covenant. What is it talking about clearly? Daniel 9:4. Okay. So once you realize that, then you can see what else I'm saying to you, which is that we go to Galatians 3:17. You want let's connect all these things, okay? Galatians 3:17. Galatians 3:17. Okay. Galatians 3:17. Remember, the Apostle Paul says, and I'm paraphrasing, take heed to what I say, and the Lord give you understanding in all things. When you get to Paul's letters, what Paul is doing is going from beginning to end. That's what the Apostle Paul is. He's not doing what mid-acts dispensationalists think he's doing. He's not doing what dispensationalists think he's doing. What Paul is doing is covering the entire Bible in 14 letters. Yes, I believe he wrote 14. I believe he wrote Hebrews. Okay, I believe that. Because the number 14 is the fish in the Hebrew alphabet. And we are 153 great fish. That's what Paul's letters are doing. You could just think about what I'm saying right now. And then, if you think about Paul's letters, you'll be like, oh, that's interesting. Because look, when Paul talks about things from the garden all the way to things of the end, the latter times, right? And he talks about Israel and their covenant with God and the elect of Israel. He's going over in 14 letters an overview, an eagle's eye view of everything. That's why the Apostle Paul is how would I say? He's kind of like no other writer in the Bible, in the sense that Paul got everything by revelation, and what his letters are an overview of everything. In Romans chapter 5, he talks about original sin, Adam, the fall of Adam, and then he goes to Christ justifying, dying for all sin, Romans 5:18, things like this. He talks about Abraham in Romans chapter 4. He was justified by faith when he believed God. He was counted for righteous. In Hebrews, I believe Paul wrote Hebrews. He talks about Noah being justified, righteous in God's eyes. Enoch. He talks about King David. He talks about Rahab. Abraham. He's going over everything. That's why Paul says, and God inspired him to write all this. Listen to what I say, what I'm writing, and the God will give you understanding in all things. Why is he saying that? Because his letters are an overview of everything. So pay attention to what Paul is writing. He's not doing what mid-acts dispensationalists say he's doing. Okay? You don't just take his letters and cut them out of everything, because what Paul's actually doing is talking about everything. So what mid-acts dispensationalists tell you is just follow Paul's letters. But what is Paul writing about all the time? Everything. That's why he says, consider what I say, and the Lord give you understanding in all things. Past, present, future. Everything. He talks about before Israel, how they were trying to be justified by the law. Then when Christ came, justified, without the law of Moses. And, I know there's arguments on nobody was justified by the law of Moses anyway, but that's not my point. My point is that he's going over everything, and so Galatians 3:17, what is Paul saying? Okay. Paul is saying that Jesus Christ confirmed the covenant. Read it yourself, KJV, Galatians 3:17. God in Christ confirmed the covenant. And it's not going to, he's basically saying it's not going to interfere with the promise, because there's two things. There's the covenant between God and Israel, and then there's the promise, uh, you know, through Christ. And that's in Romans. You see about that in Galatians 3:17. You see, confirm the covenant, the 70 weeks thing with Israel. That didn't have to do with Gentiles, though. But then he talks about the promise, and the promise has to do with anybody in Christ. And that is in Romans. I believe it is Romans 15:8. Now that's interesting, because 15 times 8 is 120, and we know there's 120 Jubilees, right? So Romans 15:8, I believe, he says that the promises were confirmed, right? So there's a little difference between the covenant that God had with Israel, that Christ confirmed, but also then the promise goes way back before that with Abraham and his seed. And we know that anybody in Christ is part of Abraham's seed, because that's what God is about. We are Jews inwardly, not according to the flesh, right? Right. So this is what is messing a lot of people up. And, forgive me, sometimes I sound like a jerk, or I sound high and mighty. I'm not high and mighty, okay? And I try not to be a jerk, and I try not to attack people. But, sometimes, I'm human, right? I'm not only human, but I am human. And sometimes I get a little upset, a little nervy, when I know people are watching my videos that are teaching out there, and they're not mentioning anything that I'm saying. They're not even offering it up as a possibility. See, I'm getting upset. When you read Galatians 3:17, talks about Christ confirming the covenant, God in Christ. What covenant is that talking about? Well, that's going back to Daniel 9. Daniel 9:4. Daniel is praying for the covenant. Okay? So, that's what Paul's saying. He's saying, look at what I say, and you're going to be able to figure out the Bible. Best way you can, but Paul is running over everything. He's running over the covenant between God and Israel. He's running over the promise to the seed of Abraham, which is anybody in Christ. Okay, he's running over what happened to Israel, how Israel fell, but only for a time, until the fullness of the Gentiles come in, which we're almost there. And that's Romans 11:25 and 26. And then after the fullness of the Gentiles, which means a completion of time, fullness means completion of time, then when this time is up, when this time is up, where we're in this dispensation where there's no difference between Jew or Gentile, where we are all counted Jews inwardly who are saved, that it's the inward man, and that's how it is. When this time of the Gentiles is up, this dispensation of grace, then it says in Romans 11:26, then Jesus Christ goes to Jacob and starts turning iniquity away from Jacob. So there's a clear difference. Before God goes directly back to Jacob, which that is Jews according to the flesh. You see, there's a difference. Jews inwardly, dispensation of grace, spirit, and Jews according to the flesh. You have a clear separation there, that, behold, I show you a mystery, unless you be wise in your own conceits, for blindness in part has happened to Israel. This is 2,000 years now almost, until the fullness of the Gentiles come in. There's a point there. And then after the fullness of the Gentiles come in, the rapture, then God goes directly back to Jacob and starts turning iniquity away from Jacob. So there's a clear separation there. So again, this is what Paul is doing. He's explaining everything. He's giving you an overview of everything. Okay? He says that Israel fell, but God's not casting away Israel for all the replacement theology. We did not replace. Look, you cannot replace a fleshly people. Okay, there's a you can. How can you replace a certain bloodline? You can't. Okay, we are Jews inwardly according to the Spirit. So for everybody out there who has heard about replacement theology, was saying that the church, the body of Christ, the man child, where there's no difference between Jew or Gentile, has replaced a physical bloodline, it doesn't even make any sense. You can't. How can Gentiles of that bloodline replace another bloodline? No, because God, it doesn't. It's not even possible. Okay, unless God changed our bloodline and DNA, which He did not. Okay, we are only Jews inwardly according to the Spirit. So again, what's my point here? Read Galatians 3:17 about God confirming the covenant between Him and Israel, and that was in Christ. And also it talks about the promise, which is something else. But if you take Galatians 3:17 and connect it to Daniel 9 verse 4 and all of Daniel 9 about the confirming of a covenant, you'll see that's about Jesus Christ. That's about the covenant between God and Israel. That's what that is. So once you see that, then let me show you what that does. How does that help anything? How do you see a 42-month Great Tribulation or wrath period after that? Well, I'm going to show you. Okay. Here we go. Look. Once you see what I'm telling you, okay, then you can see why and how there's a 42-month tribulation, which is half of it 7 years, and not 84 months, which is 7 years. First of all, when you get into the book of Revelation, it never says there's 84 months. It never says there's 7 years, which is 84 months. Over and over and over, it tells you there's 42 months. There's 42 months. There's 42 months. 1,260 days. What's 1,260? That's 42 months. See? Over and over and over. Okay? But people haven't got it. Why? All because of what I'm telling you about the whole Daniel 9. And Daniel 9 is solved in Galatians 3:17. Period. That's why Paul says, listen to what I'm saying, and the Lord give you understanding in all things. So take Galatians 3:17 back to Daniel 9. So look, so what difference does this make? Well, this makes a whole lot of difference. Okay? Because, let me scoot this camera forward. All right. Because when we look at the timeline, we start at 4004 BCE, right? You guys all know this following me, okay? 4004 BCE. Okay, Adam was kicked out of the garden 33 and a half years later, just like Christ died at the cross 33 and a half. That's 3970 BCE, all right? Here's 0. There is no year 0, but it's a marker. So you go 3970 BCE plus 2030 AD, right there, gives you a full 6,000 years, okay? You don't start from the year of creation. You start from when Adam was kicked out of the garden. This is Genesis 6:3, okay? Genesis 6:3 says that when God's Spirit began contending with man, when God created Adam, there was no contention. They were one, in one accord. It's not until Adam was kicked out of the garden and then the spirit of Adam or man was contending with God. That's where the time of 120 Jubilees begins. 120 Jubilees is 6,000 years, Genesis 6:3. Okay. So we know we start from 3970 BCE to get to 6,000 to 2030, okay? Because we don't start from 4004, the year of creation. We start from when Adam was kicked out of the garden, and to see what happened with the first Adam, we look at the last Adam, which is Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ, and again, you got to get these things right or else you got all messed up, was put on the cross at 30 AD, okay? Not 32, not 33, 30 AD. And he was how old? About 33 and a half years old, or 33 and a third years old. Either way, we're not messing around with months right now. So we look at the last Adam, Jesus Christ. When was he put on the cross? 33 and a half years old. Go to Adam, start at 4004 BC. Go forward 33 and a half years, you come to 3970 BCE. That's where the 6,000 years starts. 3970 BCE years plus 2030 AD years gives you a full 6,000 years. That's exactly the timeline. That's exactly where we're at. Okay, now, you can't see this, first of all, if you don't have that. You have to have that first. But the next thing you have to know is that Jesus Christ's ministry right here, what was it? 3.5 years. Jesus Christ's ministry was, that's 33 and a half, okay? His ministry counts. His ministry counts. You know, people say something that's not even true, but what they say, or that nothing that I agree with, but what they say is that, the church started the day of Pentecost after the cross. Okay, so you believe that. So, where was that? So, but see, they put that at the wrong place. So Jesus Christ's ministry, which was 3.5 years, counts. So from 3970 BCE, you go, what am I thinking here? Oh, okay, so, yeah, right. So now we get into the other realm. So let me get into the next thing, okay. So now we talk about the covenant between God and Israel, okay? And we get that timeline down. God and Israel covenant, right? Not the 6,000 year thing, okay? Now we're going with God and Israel's covenant, okay? And what was God and Israel's covenant about? It was about 70 weeks of years, which is 490 years. God and Israel's covenant is 490 years, which is 70 weeks of years. Okay. So, where did that begin? Look these things up, please. After I show you these things, look them up, prove them to yourself. Don't take my word for it. You can if you want. I'm telling you the truth, but you look them up. So where did the 490 years begin? Well, if you look at where it's supposed to begin, it begins when Artaxerxes gives the decree to build the temple. Okay? What is it? Build or rebuild? Rebuild, I think it is. And that was in 538. Wait, no. 457. My bad. 457 BCE. Okay? BCE. Okay, so we're trying to fulfill 490 years. That countdown from when the temple begins to get built, 457. So 457 is from 457 BCE to around year zero. I know there's no year zero. We're using it as a marker. So you have 457 years fulfilled. Okay. And so when was Jesus born? Jesus was born in 4 BCE. Okay. So when did his ministry begin? His ministry began when he was about 30 years old. So he was actually 29. It says about 30, so that means 29. Which would be, we're going to call it 26 AD. Okay? It could be 25, 26. We'll just say 26 for all intents and purposes. Okay. So you have 457 to 0 about, right? And then you have 26 years to add the 457. So we go 457 fulfilled plus when Jesus began his ministry, 26 years. So 457 plus 26 years is 67, 77, 43. Okay. Perfect. So we have 483 years of the 490 fulfilled at 26 AD, where Jesus began his ministry. Now here's something that people are lacking because they're not counting Jesus' ministry for whatever reason. This is the whole key. Okay? Jesus' ministry was about 3.5 years. Takes you to 30 AD. Okay, his ministry takes you to 30 AD. So 483 plus 3.5. 483 plus 3.5 equals 46. What is it? 40. 4, 5, 6.5. 48, 49. Yeah. So I believe it's 486.5 years fulfilled. Okay. So what are the keys here? Well, the key is to know where to start. 457 BCE. Look that up. When did the decree go out to rebuild the temple? By Artaxerxes, it's 457 BC. And then what is the other key to remember? That we count Jesus' ministry, the 3.5 years. People even say, oh, the church started at Pentecost. Well, why aren't you counting Jesus' ministry then if you think it ended after the cross? If you think that something new began after the cross, which I don't look at it like that, but if they do, well, then everything up until the cross was not something new. Okay, and which that is actually in Hebrews. That there is no New Testament or covenant until the death of the testator. For a testament is of no force until men are dead. So, okay, you want to look at it like that. Well, something new happened after the cross that is not according to the 490 years. So you count everything up to the cross. From 457 BCE to 30 AD is 486.5 years fulfilled of 490. So what's left? Well, all you do is 490 minus 486.5, and you get 47.5, 48.5, 49.5, 490. So there's 3.5 years left. It's as simple as that. Any questions? It's as simple as that. That's where it is. That's where it is. Okay. Now let me go over this. Exactly. So let's go over this real quick. Okay. It's very simple. And if you heard of 2030 Messiah online, he's a year off. Okay. He's a year off. So, and the reason 2030 Messiah online is a year off is because he's starting from 458 BCE instead of 457. Okay, so what is this about? Let's look at all this stuff here. God made a contract, a covenant. Get it? God made a covenant, right? A covenant with Israel. Daniel 9, a covenant for 490 years. That 490 years began when the decree went out from Artaxerxes to rebuild the temple. That was 457 BCE. Look that up yourself. You'll find it. It's very simple. 457 BCE. You go all the way to 30 AD. So 457 plus 30. Wait. Where did I mess up here? Oh, okay. No. Yeah, right. We're good. So 457. First, we'll start where Jesus began his ministry. So 457 BC years plus 26 AD years, which is where Jesus began his ministry, 26 AD. 457 plus 26 is 483, leaving you 7 years left. But we count Jesus' ministry because that's part of the covenant that he's confirming. Galatians 3:17. God confirmed the covenant in Christ. That's Daniel 9. So you count his ministry. So now you have 43, which leaves 7 years left. But you count 3.5 years of his ministry. So 483 plus 3.5 years leaves us with 486.5 years finished of that covenant between God and Israel. So how many is left? Well, we got 490 total we need. We have 486.5 fulfilled at the cross. Subtract, what do you have? You have 3.5 years left. That's it. That's why the book of Revelation says 42 months, 1260 days. That's what Christianity has been lied to about. Right, exactly, Rebecca. That's another one. Yeah, the Bible's full of that. Jesus says, the guy asked Jesus how many times forgive your brother. He says 7 times 70. What's 7 times 70? It's 490. Okay, there's 42 months left, man. Even and again, how can people? Let me scoot this back now a little bit. Okay. Also, Rebecca, if you look at what year, if you type in 770 BCE, Jonah and the well, I believe that's the year that he went and preached to Nineveh, 770 BCE. Pretty interesting connections here. But again, here's the crazy thing that you guys, hopefully you got everything I said. Here's the crazy thing is that how are people saying that the cross was at 33 AD? How is that possible? It's not possible. And why is that not possible? Because of the decree of Artaxerxes. When did that decree go out? That's when the 490 years begins. It's impossible. If you say there's a 33 AD crucifixion, like there isn't, then you have to say that that decree by Artaxerxes went out in 450, about three and a half, 454. That's what you'd have, because you'd have to go forward 3 years, right? So instead of 457, which this is common knowledge, it's common knowledge. You look it up. What year did the decree go out by Artaxerxes to rebuild the temple? It's going to tell you 457 BCE. If you believe in a 33 AD crucifixion, you have to move it forward 3 years. So it takes you to 454 BCE, and that is, nobody agrees with that. Nobody says that the decree by Artaxerxes went out in 454 BCE. You'll see. That's the thing that you have to see. And once you see that clearly, you say, it's impossible for 33 AD crucifixion. Has to be 30 AD. Okay? So once you get this down, 457 BCE, Artaxerxes' decree, that's where the 490 years begins. 457 to 0. Okay, you got 457. Christ. Now another thing you got to get down, when was Christ born? 4 BCE. Because here's the thing to remember, Christ had to be born at least 4 BCE because it was coinciding with King Herod. Okay, Herod was still Christ and Herod were alive at the same time. Okay, and for that to happen, it had to be at least 4 BCE that Christ was born. Okay, so it is, because look, 4 is the number for door. Okay, the beginning was 4004 BCE. Christ came exactly 4,000 years later, which is 4 BCE. The number 4 is the number for door. Christ is the door. It's all about the door. Passover, they put the blood on the door. He says, I am the door. Okay, so that's why it is 4 BCE. And BCE is before Common Era. It's not before Christ. Okay, because Christ can't be born 4 years before Christ. Okay, that's not really what that means. On our Roman calendars, the correct is BCE, before Common Era. Okay, so Christ was born 4 BCE. Had to be at least. You know? And once you get that down, then you just do the math. It's all about math. Okay? It's all about the math. So, he was born in 4 BCE. He began his ministry around 30 years old, so he was about 29, which takes you to about 26 AD. And for 26 AD, his ministry is about 3.5 years. Takes you to 30 AD. We're not getting into the dates and the months. We're doing the years. Okay, that's simple. So 30 AD is our marker for the cross. So 457 BCE years plus 30 AD years is 46, about 46 and a half, because there's a half in there. So 486 and a half is fulfilled to 30 AD. And if you ask, it's so ridiculous to me. If you ask Christians, they'll say, yeah, the body of Christ began at the day of Pentecost, after the cross. So what they're saying is, without saying it, is that something new began after the cross. Now, I don't look at it like that, but whatever. We can play that game. So if that's what you believe, something new happened after the cross, then it had to be 30 AD because of this. 457 BCE. 457 BCE. Because look, if you say that something new happened after the cross, so even if they say we stop at the cross for the count, if you stop at 33 AD, you push it forward 3 years, and nobody agrees with that. Nobody says that the decree went out in 454 by Artaxerxes. It's 457. It's not 458. It's not 454. It's 457. So you can't have 33 AD. You'd have to tack on 3 years, which would push it forward 3 years. Doesn't work. It's incorrect. It's incorrect. So yes, the 490-year count stops at the cross for a time. Remember, God decided to go to the Gentiles. Even Jesus talked about going to the Gentiles. Because what happened? The cross, well, the Jews killed Jesus. So, that's when Israel, another argument, oh, well, when did Israel actually fall? And things said, well, that was at the cross, okay? Because they crucified their Messiah, okay? And so then what do you have? You have the Spirit come down, okay? So, it all is tied together. It's all hinged together, okay? Once you understand these certain numbers, then you can see the boundaries in which this can be, okay? Then you see the boundary in which it cannot be 33 AD that the cross happened, which it cannot be 2033 AD for the end. It has to be 2029, 2030. You see the boundaries. Once you realize the boundary, which is 457 BCE, for the 490 years to begin, then you have a set limit. You have a set limit on where you can go. Okay, and you can't go past 30 AD, because if you go to 33 AD, then there is not even 42 months left. Okay, would you dare and do that? No. You see? So once you have 457 down, 457 BCE down, and you want to push it 33 AD, well, the only way you do that is not count Jesus' ministry. And that's ridiculous, because Christ was confirming the covenant. Okay? That was all prophecy being fulfilled. You're telling me that Jesus' 3.5 year ministry is not part of the 490 years? You're out of your mind. Christ was part of the covenant in Daniel 9 that he was confirming. He was the covenant. He was the covenant. Right? The Messiah. So you're going to say, oh, well, Christ's ministry doesn't count. You have to count his ministry. Okay? So, therefore, my numbers are correct. Not getting into the months and the exact days. It's easy. It's not that hard, but the main thing is to see this, the years. Thank you, Walt. Thank you. I'm glad somebody gets it. Exactly, Walt. Exactly. King Herod. It hinges on King Herod, the 4 BCE. On the 40 days representation, so many times Jesus used 4 days. Sure, Walt. Yeah, sure. So that's, yes. The number 40, yes. I'm going to do that, Walt. Because, okay. That's a good one. That's a good one, Walt. I like that, because I got something for that. Okay? So now we're going directly to Jesus' ministry, okay? And again, the things that I'm telling you right now, the teachers that watch my videos and stuff, they're probably not even going to say anything about it, okay? They're not going to even touch a 42-month tribulation. They're not going to touch a 30 AD crucifixion, because I know they've been watching my videos now for a long time, and they haven't even mentioned it as a possibility, okay? That's why I'm upset. So anyways, so we go right here to 0, just a marker, right? And I love Walt's comment here, okay? And we're at 4 BCE, okay? The year that Christ was born, okay? And then we go forward to 26 AD, when his ministry began, 25, 26. We're not getting into the months. And then we go to the cross, which is 30 AD. Okay. So this is a great thing. Walt asked me to expound on all the 40-day symbolism. This is beautiful. I love it because I got some for that. So again, when Jesus began his ministry right here at 26 AD, give or take, he was led out into the wilderness by the devil, led out by the Spirit, into the wilderness or the desert, might have been the desert, to be tempted by the devil, right? Perfect. How long was he led out there for? 40 days. We have that number 40. Okay, look at 40 days. This is great. Okay, this is great. Thank you, Walt. Thank you. That's a good one, Walt. You're helping me. Okay, look. So this is when his ministry began. There's a 40-day thing there in the desert. Why 40 days? Because that's a count for us. When you turn these days, 40 days, into Jubilees, thank you, God. Into Jubilees, turn the days into Jubilees. A Jubilee is how many years? 50 years. 40 times 50 is what? 2,000 years. So God gives us symbolism from about 26 AD for 2,000 years forward. Something is going to happen. See that? And he was tempted 3 times. Okay. The number 3 again. Significant there, but we're dealing with the 40-day count, right? So there's a 2,000-year count to when? To now. To right now. When 2025 is going to be 2026. We hit this one. Okay? And what is it going to be? I got something for you. Okay. And it's a harpazo. Now watch it. I don't know what the harpazo is, but it's a harpazo. Now watch this. In the book of Daniel, to get to this point, 26 AD, 25, 26 AD, when Jesus began his ministry, it says specifically, let me get it out. I don't want to mess this one up. This is great. You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this. No, I'm doing the video. That's my cousin. Okay. Family. Okay. Look at, no, I don't want to mess this one up. You ain't even gonna believe this. I've shown this, but you ain't gonna believe it. Watch. 1208. Okay. You're gonna love this. I don't want to mess it up. That's why I gotta get the Bible exact on this one. You're not even gonna believe it. You're gonna look at me and go, what the? How do you see that? Well, you're gonna see. Okay. Watch. Okay. Daniel. Okay, let me think. Where is it? Okay. Probably in Daniel 9 again. It's in Daniel 9. Daniel 9, big key. Don't want to mess this one up. Okay. Okay, Daniel chapter 9. Okay, look here. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to rebuild build Jerusalem, 457 BCE, we just went over that, unto the Messiah, the Prince, Jesus, shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Okay. 7 weeks. It says there's 7 weeks of years, okay, to get to when the Messiah, 7 weeks, 69, 62, 69, right. So he says there's going to be 7 weeks of years and 62 weeks to get to the Messiah, right, to where Jesus begins his ministry. So you have, look at this. You have 7 and 62 weeks to get to the Messiah, beginning his ministry from 457 BCE. Do you see that number there? Look at what is there. 726 harpazo, scramble. See? Because that's 69 weeks, God says. Because 7 plus 62 is 69 weeks of years. So 69 times 7 is 483, right? So 26 AD is 483 years from 457 BCE. Takes you to that. But the way the Bible says it is 7 weeks and 62 weeks. 726 harpazo, right here. God made it like that. That's how he put it. 7 and 62, which is 726 scrambled, which takes you to Jesus' ministry. And from Jesus' ministry, there's a 2,000-year count to take us to now. And again, you have that encoded right there. But jump it up 2,000 years. See that? See what God did there? These numbers, man. It's there. It's there. Okay? Now, that takes us, that's for that. Now, what God did is there's another thing here. What was it? I think, oh yeah, right. So after the cross, there's another 40-day count, right? Because from after the cross, I believe it was to the day of Pentecost, right? So from the cross, Jesus said they went to the day of Pentecost, which is 40 days away. I believe that's correct. So again, right here at 30 AD, you have another 40 days, 40-day symbolism from the cross, 40 days later, right? But then again, you turn the 40 days into Jubilees, which is 2,000 years, just like the other one. And from 30 AD, 2,000 years, you come to 2030 AD. You see, so God is putting these 40-day things on purpose. So from the beginning of Jesus' ministry, you have 2,000-year thing. Then you go 3.5 years forward from the cross. You have a 2,000-year thing too. There's two things going on there. See that? See that? That's what the 40s are about. It is. Now watch this. I got another one for you. Watch this. Let me show you another perfect pattern that people, I don't know what their problem is. So here it is. Something that is not in the Bible is 70 AD. And in 70 AD, this is where you get preterism, which says that this was all prophecy fulfilled, which in part it was, but you've seen what I showed you. So 70 AD is when the temple was destroyed, right? And it was actually called even the temple of God, okay? But it gets weird because the Bible says before 70 AD that God doesn't dwell in temples made with hands, but yet the 70 AD temple that was destroyed was actually called the temple of God. So I don't know. So this whole next temple thing that they're building, it's all a counterfeit. Everything's going on right now, it's counterfeit. This was the last physical temple that counted, okay? There is no other physical temple that counts for prophecy other than New Jerusalem at the end, okay? Nothing that man builds is going to count. It's just a counterfeit. So 70 AD, the temple went down. And if you go back to the cross, start from the cross, at 30 AD, what do you have? You have another 40. From 30 to 70, you have 40 years, right? So you have from 30 AD, the cross, to 70 AD, the temple going down, you have 40 years. Again, another pattern for 40. If you turn those 40 years into Jubilees, you have 2,000 year count. So you have 40 years from 30 AD to 70 AD, turn them into Jubilees, you have 2,000 years, which is 2030 AD. The end. See that? And that's God's principle. He turns days into years and years into Jubilees. Right? This is how God does it. So you have a 40 years, and then begin from here again, you have 40 Jubilees. It takes you to 2030 exactly. Okay? See that? That's what these 40s are about, and it's all there, man. Now, the thing is, 70 AD is not in the Bible. Okay? And why that is, I don't know. But, God is a rewarder of those who seek him diligently, and we can get on the argument of why does the King James or the Bible leave it out, and all these things. But in fact, it really happened. It's a historical fact, easily provable. That was the last physical temple that Israel had. There is no more physical temples that count for prophecy. It's all counterfeit today. Okay? And as you guys have seen, the people in the land that they call Israel are Khazarian. Okay? If you don't believe me, you can look up King Bulan and the Khazarians in around 740 AD. The Khazarians and King Bulan took on Judaism. And that was what? About 1,300 years ago, give or take. And that's who the people are over there. That is not the gathering of the nation of Israel. That was a political state that is called Israel, that's created by the United Nations, totally Luciferian, and the Rothschilds funded it. So all Luciferians, it's all a counterfeit. What does God say? In the last days, there's going to be what? It's going to be strong delusion. So this is all part of the strong delusion, okay? A 7-year Great Tribulation is part of the strong delusion. The political state of Israel, people thinking that that's Israel, is a strong delusion. It's all strong delusion. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11. And unfortunately, so many Christians are believing that. So many Christians are pushing that. But again, all you have to do is look these things up. We have the internet. You don't have to take my word for it. Look up King Bulan and the Khazarians in 740 AD. When Judaism. King Bulan, the Khazarians and Judaism, 740 AD. And then you'll see. And they're Yiddish. The modern Hebrew language, we don't even have the original Hebrew language. We have modern Hebrew, which is a scratch between, Hebrew and then Yiddish. It's Yiddish. So the original Hebrew is called Paleo-Hebrew. Now, there is a connection between modern Hebrew and Paleo-Hebrew. But my point is this, is that it's all strong delusion. Okay? They're not Israel. Another temple is not going to count. It's all counterfeit. And it's all just a delusion. There's no 7 years left. There's 42 months of wrath. Again, just believe the book of Revelation. Take it to the book of Revelation. Show me some physical temple, third temple in the book of Revelation. There is none. There is no third temple, meaning a building, in the book of Revelation. It's not there. Neither is there 7-year tribulation in the book of Revelation. Okay? There is no 84 months in the book of Revelation. There's 42 months over and over and over. 1260. Why? Because it's all overlaid with each other. Okay? It's all layered on top of each other. This is what the Bible is. Okay? It is excuse me. Just like the Gospels. The Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. What is it? Okay? It's they're all layered on top of each other. Okay? They're all telling you the same things at the same time, just a little different way. That's it. It's all layered on top of each other. Just like the book of Revelation. It's all layered on top of each other. That's why it continually says 1,260 days, 42 months. These things. Never says 84. Why? Because it's all layered on top of each other. Telling you the same thing for the same time, just in a little different way. I've seen a guy out there who teaches, that Matthew, Mark, and Luke are to different sets of people. No, I don't see it like that at all.
It's not. I don't see it like that at all. It's just saying the same thing in different ways, and it's layers. It's just layers. That's all it is. So they're divided, but they're one. Okay, just like one book says the last words of Jesus was this, and then another book says his last words were that. It's giving you the same thing except in a little different way. That's all it is. Okay, and that's what that is all about. So again, that's where we're at. We're at a time of great deception. We're at a time of strong delusion. Now we've been in it. People are like, "Oh, there's a strong delusion coming." Sorry, no. Most of the people who say that are already deceived on many of the issues that I just talked about. As far as what is left of the 490 years, right? There's 3.5 years left. And some people believe that there is nothing left of it. Okay, but that's not biblically accurate, according to Romans 11. That view would be called the preterist view, where all the 490 years are fulfilled, and now all you have is the church until the end. That's preterism. Okay, they got it half wrong. Then you have people that say there's 7 years left. The majority of people. That's wrong. Okay, the the problem is they both have a piece of it, but they're both missing a piece of it too. The preterist says everything was fulfilled, and then the preterist would have to be a replacement theology as well. Because if you think that Israel is done, you must have missed Romans chapter 11. What did you skip? Verse 25 and 26? How can a preterist get around Romans 11:25 and Romans 11:26? Talks about when the fullness of the Gentiles is done, the completion of the Gentiles, then after that, God turns iniquity away from Jacob, which is physical Israel. So you have the completion of the Gentiles, which we are Jews, Israel inwardly. And then after that's done, the rapture, then you have God going directly to Jacob, which are Jews according to the flesh. How do you get around that? How do you say it's done? How do you say the church replaced Israel? So preterism, they're wrong, partially. And then the 7-year tribulation people are wrong, partially. Now they have the division of the dispensations correct, right? Like there's a time of the fullness of the Gentiles, and then that's separate from God going to physical Israel. Okay, so they understand that, except they're adding 3.5 years. They got it wrong, and I went over all that. So this is just a whole big mess. It's a whole big mess out there, and so many Christians have been told lies. And that's why I do my videos. Well, one of the reasons. My videos are to prove things to you guys. God sent me out on this mission to find the truth in these major major subjects. Okay, and I believe I have. Okay, and it's this journey started 9 or 10 years ago, and here we are. And that's why I use a marker board. That's why when you see my videos, I look things up on Google. I show you exactly where my sources are, how I got this, what I'm talking about, explaining everything, because you're supposed to prove all things. So I don't usually get on my channel and say, just believe me. I don't do that. Just believe what I'm saying. I'm right. Trust me, I'm a prophet of God. Right? No, I don't say that. We're prophets in part. First Corinthians 13. Yeah, but Paul also says to prove all things. So I'm supposed to give you how and why I'm coming to my conclusions. And I'm not telling you, oh, I had a dream. No. No. It's not how it's done. Okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people fall for that stuff. They have Martin Luther King syndrome. I had a dream. Why do I do my videos so late? Because this is all I do. I drink energy drinks and coffee drinks, and I'm up at night. I'm usually up at night. North Carolina, all right. Yeah, I'm just usually up at night, and so this is what I do at night. Why not? I'm up at night. I drink energy drinks. I drink coffee, shot drinks, and So all I have is these things on my mind pretty much constantly. Besides fighting off other thoughts that shouldn't be there, I have these thoughts. And so I figured, if nobody sees them at this time or not many people, then I'm going to post it and they're going to see it eventually. So it'll work out either way. So that is the truth about those things. And again, I think I'm going to be doing more videos on the same things, this timeline, these numbers, right? When this happened, when that happened, when that, because this is what Christians have been lied to about. When we are. When are we? When we are. Well, prove it to me. Prove to me when we are. This is what Christianity doesn't really teach, right? And then what do they have in Christianity? They got some guy standing behind a pulpit, and he's just telling you things. He's not giving you visual aids, right? Some people online use marker boards. Some people use it, but not very well. And when they use it, they got it wrong anyways. But what does mainstream Christianity do? They got like a person up there. They're not proving anything to you. They're just telling you things, right? Like a guy that just came to my mind that I like, even though he's wrong on some things, is like J.D. Farag, right? Like I appreciate him standing up against the V, right? And some of the things he preaches are okay, but he is deceived about the state of Israel. He is deceived about a 7-year Great Tribulation, which most are. But again, what I don't like about JD and anybody doing the same thing as him is they just stand up there in a pulpit and they tell you things. Just believe me, it's like, right? It's like, wait a second. No, you need some visual aids. You need some sheets with some facts on it. You need to prove these things to people. Don't just say, believe, this is the truth. Prove to me that you're right. Right? Show me where you're getting that. Well, how did you get that? How did you get that? Where did you get? This is what Paul says. He says, prove all things. Hold on to that which is good. And that's what I'm doing to you. And I say, I show you a marker board, and then when I do my videos, I show you the sheets on Google or wherever the source may be, the Bible, and I show you so that you can see, and I tell you so that you can look these things up too. That's what people are supposed to be doing. Every good teacher does that. Let me say that again. Every good teacher should be doing that, proving things to you. And I'm not talking about saying I had a dream or a vision. You can't prove any of that. Okay? Regardless if I have visions and dreams that I think are true or correct, I would never hinge anything off of that. Right? Because it could have been sent by the devil. It could have been by my own mind. Right? Or I could have the interpretation wrong. Or I could be lying to you. So I don't mess with any of that. And I don't know how anybody could really hinge their faith off of somebody else's dream or vision these days, because who knows where it came from and who knows what it really meant. Okay, you don't want to do that. Trust me, you don't want to do that. Okay, and so we're supposed to do this. We're supposed to use graphs, charts, calculations, give you sources, right? The Bible, Google, this website, that website, numbers, calculation, equations. This is how you should be convinced of the truth. You should be looking it up yourself. Not just be walking around saying, this is what I heard, I think it's true. Is this true? Do you think it's true? Look it up. And not every time you're going to find everybody that agrees on everything. But my point is that like the 457 thing, shoot, man. I'm not saying that I go with the majority of what the majority believes, but in this case, it is interesting that the majority agree that it was 457 BCE when Artaxerxes gave the commandment to rebuild or build the temple of Jerusalem. So that's 457 BCE. You go forward to the cross, which is 30 AD, and then it leaves you with 3.5 years left of the 490 years. It's as simple as that. It's easy. But you can't say it's 33 AD, because if you say it's 457 and 33 AD, then you would be a preterist. Because then there would be nothing left to fulfill. And get that? Let me show you this. Look at it. If you start at 457 BCE, for when the 490 years begins of the covenant, Daniel 9, the covenant between God and Israel, not an antichrist, 457 BCE, and you say that the cross is in 33 AD, and you add that together, Then you have equals 490 years. Then it's all done. That means you're a preterist. That means that you don't believe Romans 11, 25, and 26. That there's going to be a completion of the Gentiles and then God goes back to Jacob. See? So if you believe 457 BCE and 33 AD for the cross, you believe that all of 490 years is fulfilled already. See that? And now you're in the camp of preterism, saying that it's just the church. Who cares about Romans 11:25 and Romans 11:26? And I guarantee that 99% of the people who say 33 AD now are not preterists. So they just oppose themselves. They're just going against themselves, and they don't even realize what they're doing doesn't even make any sense. So what is it? So the cross is not 33 AD. It's 30 AD, which takes you to 486 and a half years fulfilled. So 487 and a half, 488 and a half, 489 and a half, and then half. You have 3.5 years left. See? Simple as that. 1, 2, 3, ABC. That's it, man. That's the answers. These are answers that people, most of these guys that are teaching, they ain't going to touch it. They ain't going to touch it. What's up, my man Tom? Yeah, full on predators, man. It just don't work. That's right, Walt. Romans 11, 25, and 26 destroys the preterist. Destroys the preterist. And somebody said 491 again. So when you get into the months, it equals 490. Again, when Jesus began his ministry, he was about 29 years old. So it wasn't actually 30. And it was 20, 25, 26 within that range. So again, we're not, I understand you said 491, but we don't get into the months right now. There's no point. I'm not worried about the months right now. I'm showing you guys the outline of the years, okay? That's all we really need to see right now. That's the main thing. It is 490 years, okay? So 46 and a half, you have 47 and a half, 48 and a half, 49 and a half, and then a half to get to 490, 3.5. And that is 457 BCE years. 457 is when the decree went out to rebuild the temple. To 30 AD, the cross. 457 plus 30, okay, is, and again, yeah, right. So so I see why they would say 491, because I'm not doing the months, right? So you go 457, 30 AD, but it was in the middle of 30, right? So again, so it would be like, how do you do that? So it'd be like half of 30, right? So chop it in half, right? Like 50% of 30, right? Because Christ was crucified at Passover, right? Which is early April, late March. So again, yeah, it's not 491 because of that. When you chop it in half, it's 490. It's just when you get into the months, that's how you can see it better. But if you do it like this, see, it looks like it could be 491, but you got to get into the months. He wasn't crucified at the end of 2030. He was crucified near the beginning of 2030. Or excuse me, not 2030, but 30 AD. So that's why that is. But yeah, that's okay that you saw that. Again, this is why I'm not getting into the months, because it's not that important to me. Yeah. Oh, yeah, good, man. Good. Right. Exactly. Yeah, we can talk about that for a second, Jared. James. Right. Great. So yeah, I'm going to talk about that because that's a great one too. Okay, good, Walt. So look, that's right, James. Let me show what the heck he's just said, and that is great. This is great. It's good, James. Bringing up good points, and these are all things that I've talked about and worked on. So, great point, James. Great. Glad that Walt is seeing some things now. Okay. So what James said, yes, this is perfect. Okay. So in the beginning, before the flood of Noah, it is said, and I do believe, that the beginning of the year was at the 7th month now. So the beginning of the year was actually the middle of the year in the days of Noah. So the beginning of the year would have been in September, like backwards, before Israel and God got together for their covenant thing. So the beginning of the year would have been in September on the biblical calendar, which is the Feast of Trumpets. Okay? The Feast of Trumpets is when the 6 days of creation happen. The day of the Feast of Trumpets is the 6th day of creation, which was Adam. And then 5 days before that was the 5 days of creation, which usually lands in September. Okay. So yes, this is where the calendar actually began, before the flood and then sometime after the flood, September, which is the month of Tishri. This is the month of Tishri. Tishri, I might spell that wrong. I'm not sure if it's re or re the other way. But the month of Tishri began the year. Okay. And this is like a fall. Began in the fall, right? That's the Feast of Trumpets. That's the beginning of fall. Okay. So it was a 180, right? And then God came along and told Israel to flip it. So now when God came to Israel, he said, now the year is going to begin in the late March, early April. So we'll put March, April, which is springtime. Okay? And that month is called Nisan. Right? And so that's what we're on right now. Okay? So this is a great point. So in the beginning, the year began in September, Tishri, biblical calendar. But then after God came to Israel, he said, now begin it in March and April, which is Nisan, which is spring. So Tishri is the fall when it used to begin, September. And then Nisan is the spring, where it now begins, according to God, which is March, April, right? And what James mentioned is exactly why 6 months are cut off at the end. Remember when Jesus says he's going to cut the time short? Okay. How does he do that? Well, this is the amazing thing is going to happen. It's amazing. That's a great point. I love it. I got the chills a little bit because I love that. What God is going to do is he declares the end from the beginning, right? So it's a great reset, right? So in the beginning, the year began in September. Creation was in September, Feast of Trumpets. And then it went to spring. But now at the end, he's going back to September. That's how we cut 6 months off. And actually, the new year will begin in September, Feast of Trumpets again. So, first it was this. Second, it was this. And then the return of Christ is at the Feast of Trumpets 2029, going back to what was first. Here, in the back, right? A cycle, 360 degrees. And that's going to be 2029. Jesus is going to come back at the Feast of Trumpets 2029. And that's why he's not coming back at Passover in 2030, because he's cutting that 6 months off from 2030 Passover, which is March, April. He's cutting 6 months off, and he's coming back at the Feast of Trumpets 2029, but it's actually going to be 2029, 2030, because why? Because the calendar is being reset to the original way. That's why that's what's happening. That's what it is. See? Started out September and Tishri, then it went to March, April. Then at the end, he cut 6 months off, cutting the time short. Goes back to September 2029. Okay? Which Feast of Trumpets, if you start from March 29th, exactly 1260 days forward, is September 9th, 2029. Feast of Trumpets. Bing, bada, bang. Right at the end of March. And you could even go to April 1st. Either way, I'm not worried about the little days. But it connects perfectly. And we're still in 2025 at the end of March. Because again, I went over that our Roman calendar got changed in the 1700s to starting the year in January 1st. But we know that it actually begins April, it flips at April 1st. So we're still going to fulfill 2025 rapture for this dispensation. And then 26 is going to begin the last 42 months. It's amazing what God did, isn't it? I mean, it's so cool. He's doing a full circle, man. So thank you, James, for bringing up that point.
That is exactly what happened. I never heard of Peter Steele, but yeah, cool. Yes. 2028 is a leap year. No. Yeah, 2028 is a leap year. 2024 was a leap year every 4 years.
25 is not a leap year, or 26. It's every 4 years. Okay.
So yeah, we have covered a lot here so far. A few more days before 26 actually begins. That's right, James.
That's right. That's right. So let me go over those numbers real quick. Exact calculations. I'm talking exact calculations, man. Exact calculations that I've done over and over and over. I got it memorized. Huh? I got this memorized. It's memorized. So if you start from March, this month, March 29th, right? And you go plus 1,260 days, just like the book of Revelation says. 1,260 days, the last 42. Now, this is 42 months on a 360-day year. Okay, 1,260, that's what that is. So start at March 29th, you go exactly 1,260 days forward. Right? Did you just toss something over here? 1,260 days plus March 29th. You come to do it on your own, man. Exactly to September 9th, 2029. What is September 9th, 2029? That is the Feast of Trumpets. Oh, that's not right. Feast of Trumpets. Exactly on the dot. Do you guys realize that that is amazing? Because we can still be in 2025 and fulfill all the equations that I've shown you, because 2025 doesn't begin until April 1st. And March 29th plus 1260 days takes you September 9th, a very early Feast of Trumpets, which is not normal. September 9th, Feast of Trumpets on the dot, which works out perfectly because God is taking it 6 months back, resetting the calendar how it was in the beginning. Come on. Come on, man. Perfect. Perfect numbers.
Whoa. The anomaly channel's getting pretty crazy. But, come on, man. You don't have to cuss on here, man. Yeah.
So there it is. And then if you begin, at March 31st, and you go 1260 days, you come to September 11th, 9/11, get it? Which is the last day of the Feast of Trumpets, right? Last day of the Feast of Trumpets from March 31st, 1260. And the first day of trumpets, March 29th, 1260. September 9th and September 11th. Get it? 9/11. The first and the last day of Feast of Trumpets. Come on, man. Come on.
We got it down perfect, guys. We got it down perfect. Yeah, no, I don't go by any of that scene calendar stuff. I got these numbers worked out perfect.
Yeah, man. It's too perfect, Tom. It's just too perfect. Can't get it out of my head. You know, and the amazing thing that I've talked about before is this, is that for us to stay in 2025, fulfill all the equations that I've shown you in the Bible for the 2025 rapture, and to also hit the exact point that we needed to hit, 2029 Feast of Trumpets, is an anomaly. No pun intended, the anomaly over here. Why is that? Because for Feast of Trumpets in 2029 to begin on September 9th is very, very rare. It's very, very early Feast of Trumpets. And it would have to be a very early Feast of Trumpets in 2029 to still be in 2025 and hit it with 1260 days. It's an anomaly. Because usually the Feast of Trumpets is mid-September to late September. Usually the Feast of Trumpets is around September 15th to September 27th. But for the reason of this, for the reason to stay in 2025, fulfill the 2025 rapture, and go 1260 and land directly on the Feast of Trumpets, 2029, exactly 1260, it would have to be an early Feast of Trumpets, which it is. No coincidence. It's not normal. It's not a normal thing for the Feast of Trumpets to be on September 9th. That is so early. I always remember Feast of Trumpets being from September 15th to September 27th or so. And if it was that case, we would not be able to stay in 2025 because we would be in April. We would have to begin, if the Feast of Trumpets was on September 15th instead of September 9th in 2029, we would have to begin 6 days forward. So we would have to begin in like April 3rd, April 4th, in which technically we would be in 2026. I'm telling you, it's amazing. It's amazing what's going on here. It's amazing. These numbers are they connect too perfect. Everything I've been showing you guys, all the calculations, all the equations for 2025 are about to be fulfilled. The rapture is going to happen, okay? Yeah, Gematria is pretty cool, man. It is. So, yeah. So we've gone over a lot of stuff in this video. I'm glad I could share it with you guys, but I really wish that the teachers out there who watch my videos would take the information, look it up for themselves, prove it to themselves, and then teach it. You know, stop teaching errors. Stop telling people that there's a 7-year thing left. You know, that makes no sense calculation. Stop telling people that the Antichrist is going to fulfill some covenant in Daniel 9. It's Jesus. That's Jesus, man. Galatians 3:17. Read it yourself. Galatians 3:17, man. Y'all Christians been lied to, including myself. We've all been lied to. All of us. Who runs Christianity? Tell me. That's right. You know who. So I've shared a lot of information. My hope is that the teachers who see this take it, prove it to themselves, and teach it. Okay? Don't waste this opportunity. Layers of deception, man. Just so many. Don't waste the opportunity, you guys out there. If you're teachers, if you're teaching error, just prove these things that I've proven to you. Prove them to yourself and teach them. You know, what's the point of watching this video if you ain't going to take it? Take it. Take it all. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for the comments. Thank you all for the likes. Thank you for the views. Thank you for the donations that you guys send sometimes on my Cash App. I got some today, like 2 of them, 10 and 20 bucks. Thank you so much, you guys. Appreciate you guys. We're here, man. We're here. The rapture is going to be fulfilled. Oh, yeah, let me share this other thing that just came to me that I found tonight. I found it a while back, but I haven't talked about it. So I'm going to show you it right now.
Thank you, Jesus is Lord. I'm going to show you another thing that I found. So when you look up the fruits of the Spirit, there's 9 of them. That's amazing. 9 fruits of the Spirit. Now, why is that amazing? Because the number 9 is 2025. Holy cow, right? Look at, add up all the numbers to 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus 9, it equals 45. Okay, we know this number. 9 fruits of the Spirit. You add up all the numbers to 9, 45. What is 45, everybody? It's the square root of 2025, meaning 45 times 45 equals 2025. You know that, right? You know that here. Equals 2025. So there's 9 fruits of the Spirit. Add up all the numbers to 9. You get the number 45, the square root of 2025, which means 45 times 45 is 2025. Okay, so 9 fruits of the Spirit, 2025. Also, if you cube all the numbers to 9, it's 2025 as well. Let me show you what that means real quick, okay? So, and there's nine numbers on the keypad. Get it? You have to pick up the phone in the Matrix to teleport. Keypad, 9. Think about it. Okay, but look at this. So if you cube all the numbers to 9, it's also 2025, meaning 1 times 1 times 1, 2 times 2 times 2, 3 times 3 times 3, all the way up. All the way, get the values, all the way up to 9, and then add the values up, it's 2025, okay? Even the number 9 on the clock. The number 9 on the clock is the number 45, which is what? The square root of 2025, okay? This is, look, even the 45 on the clock is 2025. 4 on the clock is 20 minutes. 5 on the clock is 25 minutes. 45 is even 2025 on the clock. And that's 9. 9 fruits of the Spirit, 2025. Now, well, let me show you what I found. It's crazy. Tom, you're going to like this one, Tom. So look, when you type in Jesus in English Gematria, his name equals 444, right? Well, if you take the time, and I know Tom will, I know Tom will do this. I love you, Tom. If you take the time to type in all 9 fruits of the Spirit, I think they're in the book of Galatians, right? Is it Galatians? Galatians, I think, right? All 9 fruits of the Spirit, the names of them in the King James Bible, you type all of them in. The value is, get this, 4440. What? So Jesus equals 444, and all the names of the fruits of the Spirit equal 444 with a 0. Think about that. That's pretty interesting. And that's connected to what? The 9 fruits of the Spirit, which equal 4440, is 2025, right? The number 9. We just went over that. Jesus, right? Crazy, right? Now think about this. Watch this. Watch this. Now keep that in mind, right? How Jesus is connected to the fruits of the Spirit, right? Because he is the Spirit of God, right? Okay, so look. The Word of God and the Spirit of God, it's all one. So look. So Adam, so look at a tree. Look at a tree. Okay, what does tree equal? Look at this. Tree equals 48. Jesus said he's the tree of life, right? So tree equals 48 in simple gematria. And we know that 48 times 6, Jesus comes back at the end of the 6,000th year. 6 is the number of man, right? 48 times 6 is 288. Okay, what's 288? That's Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ in Greek equals 2, 3, 6, 8. The word is Jesus Christ in Greek equals 2, 3, 6, 8. When you multiply those, 2 times 3 times 6 times 8, you get the number 288, which is
48 times 6, 288. And tree equals 48. And Jesus said he's a tree of life. Okay, you catching my drift here? So now we have Jesus and a tree connected through numerically. Okay, now watch this. Watch this. So when we look at the connection here, look at a tree. Excuse me. Stuff just flies in my mouth. So look at a tree, okay? How are we going to draw this? Like a cloud. It almost looks like a cloud, right? Caught up in the cloud, right? The tree of life, right? So if you look at a tree, okay, Adam ate a fruit from the tree, right? So Adam ate a fruit from the tree. Adam ate a fruit from the tree, right? But then what does the Bible say? It says that any man who hangs on a tree is cursed. Cursed is a man who hangs on a tree, right? So that's the cross, right? So Jesus said what? He said, I'm just showing you connections. Eat of my flesh and drink of my blood, right? For this, okay? So the cross is the tree, because any man who hangs on a tree is cursed. That's a cross. Any man who hangs on the cross made from a tree is cursed. Okay? And then Jesus is hanging on the tree right here, the cross. He said, eat of my flesh, drink of my blood. Well, what is a tree? Well, what did Adam do in the beginning? He ate from the tree, right? And so the fruit has flesh, and then it has blood, right? Or like a grape, right? And then that grows on vines, but vines grow up trees. So maybe there was a grape on the tree. So you see the connection here. When Jesus was hanging on the tree, and he said he is the tree of life, well, you go back to the tree with Adam. And what was hanging on the tree with Adam? Fruit. Well, we just saw how the fruits of the Spirit are connected to Jesus numerically. So Jesus is the tree. See the connections here with the Bible? How a tree can be a person, and fruit, numerically, and fruit goes back to the garden. And, Jesus said, eat of my flesh, and a fruit has flesh, right? And then you drink of my blood. Well, some fruit, like a grape, it's like the juice is like blood, right? And again, a grapevine grows up a tree, right? Heard it through the grapevine, right? So my point is this: the Bible is all connected in many higher ways, metaphysically, spiritually connected, all these things to the physical things. And look at, that's the problem with dispensationalism, is that they're chopping the Bible up and saying this part has nothing to do with this part has nothing to do with this part. It all has to do with itself. The whole Bible has to do with another part of the Bible. Everything is connected. Okay? All of it. All of it. All Scripture is profitable for doctrine. For 2 Timothy 3:16. Okay? So again, even the blind man said that he sees people as trees walking around. So people are trees, right? So there's lots of connections there. But I just wanted to show you guys that. Hopefully people take this. Thank you to 24 hour. Good night, 24 hour. Thank you. Yep. Yeah, Jesus is Lord, got it. Yep. Yeah, it's all code, man. It's like this. The Bible is like this. The Bible is like a whirlwind. That's why God caught up Elijah in the whirlwind, right? And that's why he appeared to Job in the whirlwind. Elijah went up, but God came down to Job, right? So just like Elijah went up and the Spirit came down to Elisha, his partner, that's symbolic, right? You go up or you come down, the whirlwind. And here's the thing. The Bible is like a whirlwind, right? It's, at the bottom, it's small. But as you increase your understanding, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So, something means just this little thing right here, but once you get way up here, it's way out here. And it's all connected. From the microcosm to the macrocosm, right? Just like this. like an upside down triangle, right? Upside down pyramid almost, right? Just like that. You start at the bottom and you work your way up, right? You work your way up. Your understanding gets really heavenly and large, and opening your eyes, increasing your understanding, right? And that's Genesis 1:1 pyramid. I don't know if I want to go into that again. I guess I could, but let me fix this. So Genesis 1:1. Genesis 1:1. The numerical value in Hebrew is 2701. 2701 is a perfect equilateral triangle with 73 layers. 73 is the number for wisdom. So if you had 2,701 dots perfectly in a triangle, that number works out to a perfect triangle of dots, there would be 73 layers. 73 is the number for wisdom. God's wisdom, okay? And look, it looks like a light, right? Light starting from a point going down, right? The pyramids. Where do you think the pyramids got? This is the Bible. Okay, they got that from somewhere. Just like a UFO, right? The light comes down like this, right? An upside down whirlwind, right? Even they say that everything began at a point of creation and then exploded like a wormhole, right? That's how a wormhole looks, right? So that's how it is, right? A day is as 1,000 years to the Lord. So you have a day here, but then the macrocosm spreads out to 1,000 years, right? Like that's how it is. Just like God went from 40 days to 40 years to 40 Jubilees so many times, showing us these patterns, showing us you start from the microcosm in your understanding to the macrocosm in your understanding. And then you're this heavenly view, a bird's eye view of everything. That's what the Apostle Paul said. He said, consider what I say, and the Lord give you understanding in all things. That's why Paul's using the whole Bible, all scripture, and he's telling you the big story. Okay? And then, so this perfect equilateral triangle, which is Genesis 1:1, 2701 dots, perfect equilateral triangle, the same on all sides, is 73 levels. But when you add 2 plus 70 plus 1, it's what? 73. Again, the amount of levels on the perfect triangle. And 73 is the value of what? Wisdom, because God's wisdom is shown in creation. He creates everything through his wisdom, through knowledge. The word science means with knowledge. That's why we can measure everything. That's why we have these equations. That's why it's so stupid to say, oh, don't bother with math and numbers and values and things like this. You guys don't even know what you're saying, because God built this place so that it can be calculated, so that it can be measured, so that it can prove that there's a designer, which is him. Okay? Knowledge proves God. Science proves God. That's how come science has been lied about, right? They lie to us about science. They say, here, this is true, but we can't prove it. Science falsely so called. 1 Timothy 6, 20 and 21. Okay? And then look at this. So 2701, okay, so 2 plus 70 plus 1 is 73, the value of wisdom. But that's not it. That's not where it stops, because look, 2701 plus its reflection, 1072, equals, guess what? 3773. So now you have the value of wisdom in standard gematria and the value of wisdom in ordinal gematria in Hebrew. So now instead of 2701 being 73 once, wisdom once, you add 2701 to its reflection, and you have two numbers for wisdom. 73 in Hebrew is standard gematria, 37 is wisdom in ordinal gematria. I'm telling you guys, now watch this. When you multiply these two values of wisdom that we got from 2701, 37 times 73, guess what you get? 37 times 73, you come right back to 2701. The value of Genesis 1:1. That's all in one verse. And there's way more than that. It's all about God's wisdom. It's all about God's wisdom. How did I learn this stuff?
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, last 9 to 10 years, listening, researching, letting God reveal things to me, looking things up, trying things, and learning and listening. The pyramid does not belong to the Illuminati. The pyramid does not belong to the devil. The pyramid, the triangle, the prism, however you want to call it, is in the very first verse of your Bible. The value of Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, in Hebrew equals 2701, which is a perfect equilateral triangle. Equilateral means it's equal on all sides. So if you had 2,701 dots, it would have 73 layers, which is the number for wisdom, and it would be equal all around, every side, every way. So whichever way you turn the triangle, it would be perfectly. It would look the same. It would be equal all the way around. Just like a perfect square, except it's a triangle. And then number 2701, added 2 plus 70 plus 1, 73, the value of wisdom. But when you take 2701, a perfect equilateral triangle, added to its reflection, 1072, you get two numbers for wisdom, 73 and 37, which, again, it's a reflection of 73. 73 reflection is 37. Two values of wisdom, in ordinal gematria and standard gematria. Then you multiply them, be fruitful and multiply, and you come back to 2701. The value of Genesis 1:1, which is a perfect equilateral triangle with 73 levels. The Bible this is what people need to see. This is what atheists need to see. This is what agnostics need to see. This is what people who think that the Bible is just a book of whatever need to see. Okay? Thank you, Walt. Yes. People do not need from the Bible nowadays another feel-good message. Hey, I'm not trying to discriminate against anybody. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm saying if you want people to understand that the Bible is divinely, supernaturally inspired, not possibly even done by man, this is the things they need to see. The perfect numerical sequences and equations that cannot be by man put there. Even by their own understanding, they say Moses, thousands of years ago. We were so dumb thousands of years ago. Okay, if a person believes that 2,500 or 3,000 years ago, whenever Moses wrote Genesis, then look at this. If we were so much dumber, then where did this come from? Okay, let's say Moses and the people back then were way dumber than us today, which is not true. But let's just say what they say. That's what they say, right? Okay, then who wrote this? Who did this? If Moses and them were way dumber than us, which is not true, then how is this in the Bible? Perfect mathematical light. Because it's not from man. It is not from this world. And this is what people need to see. You know, and anybody can, I'm not telling people what to do, and I'm not getting down on anybody. Okay? That's right. God's thoughts are higher than ours, and he gives us a little glimpse. He gives us a peek. That's why I love these things. Because then you really see, this is out of this world. That this book that we hold in our hand, we call the Bible, is not inspired by man. Nobody is this clever, okay? Especially to the atheists and agnostics and deceived people out there. Because they think man was so much dumber back then. Well, then explain this. In the very first verse of the Bible, you have this. Perfect mathematical equations, which again have not been talked about. You really have to search these things out. You really have to pay attention, right? And you're not going to find it in churches. How many churches tell you what I just showed you? None. Almost none. 99% of them don't. 99.9% of them. You see? But this is what they need to see. That's great, Wald. That's great. That's great. Yeah, it can be tiring. No, I don't believe that. March 16th is not the last day. You might be talking on the biblical calendar, but not on the Roman calendar. March, and I think it's March 17th or 18th on the biblical calendar. That's the new moon or the sliver moon. Sure. I mean, look, you know, I get it. You know, all the messages in the Bible, the moral story, like the moral of the story, almost watching like a talk show, and at the end of the talk show, we get the moral of the story and the conclusion and stuff like this. So, you know, David was a faithful man and he beat a giant and all these things. And I get that with God's hand and God's help and all these things. But the Bible is way deeper than that. Okay, especially when you get into the numbers and mathematical equations. Because look, what are people convinced by that are totally, that think that the Bible is just nothing and that people were so dumb back in the day? Well, if they see this, then they can't believe that. Now, they can lie to themselves and reject it still. Yeah, that's a possibility. So no matter what you show them, they don't care. So that's fine. But I'm sure some of them will have to look at these numerical equations and go, yeah, no, I have to come up with something else. I can't say that it was that men were so stupid back in the day, or I can't say that this is even by man. I can't say that the Bible is just another book with moral stories. I can't say any of that now because you put this roadblock in front of them. This is a stumbling block. The equations that I just showed you in Genesis 1:1, which is a tiny glimpse of things, would be a stumbling block for all the unbelievers, for all the people who reject the Bible. This is a stumbling block for them, which is a good thing. You need to put stumbling blocks like this in front of people. Say, show me how this is possible. If the Bible is just a book of moral stories and interesting stories and, this just all this and that, well, explain this. See? And this is where you're really deep and you see that, man, this is out of this world stuff, man. Am I sure I'm not a little crazy? I'm out of my mind. What are you talking about? You got kicked out of the church for having a mental disability. Yeah, man, they're a joke, man. They're a joke, man. Yeah, the Jews say that Nissan is March 19th. Yeah, it could be March 18th, March 19th, which is a sliver moon. Maybe. Yeah, if you start from the sliver moon, it's March 18th, March 19th. Yes, I am out of my mind. I'm in the mind of Christ, usually, when I'm not battling thoughts, right? So yeah, we are out of our minds, guys. But regardless if we're out of our minds, as long as we're harmless as doves and wise as serpents, that's the goal, right? And that's interesting that that's a law in America, that you can be crazy and still be free, as long as you don't hurt anybody. So there you go. You call me crazy, call me out of my mind, but I'm not hurting nobody. So you got to let me be free, right? So there you go. But yeah, God can use that mental disability, man. Maybe you got kicked out of that church because God didn't actually want you there, man. These people in these buildings, they ain't about the deep things of God, for the most part. Sure, they say that Jesus did his miracles by. Oh, cut me off. Cut me out. Cut me off again. Yeah, they didn't even say Jesus was crazy. They say he did his miracles by the devil, Beelzebub. They'll say a lot of things. They'll say a lot of things. What are you talking about, Escobar Gotti? So we're off a half a month. Oh, you're talking about March 18th to April 1st? I think that's what you're talking about. That's right, man. We're a peculiar people, man. People that are after the deep things of God they're peculiar people. They're not normal, man. They might have, to the world, they could have disabilities or whatever. But the wisdom of this world is what? Foolishness to God. That's what Romans says. That's right. Out of our minds, have the mind of Christ. The wisdom of this world is foolishness to God. Well, why? That makes a lot of sense because you're never going to find this in the world. You have to search these things out. Right? What is the world then? The world is the education systems. The world is the religion of Christianity. You're not going to find the deep things of God there. That's the wisdom of this world. The world can look at the Bible and see things topically, right? Like,
Noah, he built a boat. Anybody could see that, right? That's the world looking at the Bible. But when you get into the deeper things, what are some of the things about Noah that's much deeper? Well, the Bible says he was perfect in all his generations. That means that his genetics were not tampered with. That means that the whole world had their genetics tampered with through gene editing. The technology that they have today, they had back then. That's not worldly wisdom. That's godly wisdom. See, why does it say Noah was perfect in all his generations? Generations means genetics. Because it's talking about a genetic problem back in the day, and God had to wipe out the world. But if the world knew that, they wouldn't say, oh, he's just a killer. No. There's a big reason why that happened. And it's what is happening today. They're changing the genetics of man to not even be man. They're changing him to be mankind, which is kind of a man. That's it. That's what humans are going to. From being man to being mankind, which means kind of a man. How are they doing that? Because they're changing the genetics of man. They're tampering with genetics. And that's why God wiped out entire civilizations more than once. He told Israel to wipe out entire tribes because of the Nephilim, because of the messing with human genetics. That's a big part of the Bible. Yep. Yep, that's right. So yeah, Bible says the wisdom of this world is foolishness to God. It really is. And so that means in reverse that the wisdom of God is foolishness to the world. That's why Paul writes in Corinthians that a natural man cannot receive the things of the spiritual, of God. They are foolishness to them. They don't get it. They can't get it. It's not that they just don't get it. It's that they can't get it. Why? Because they're called the natural man. They're of this world. And even when you tell them things, they still don't truly get it. They're like, yeah, I understand that, but whatever. It's just like water on a duck. It just flies off. They can't. It cannot hit them and stick to them. It can't. Even if they understand what you're saying, it doesn't mean anything to them because they're in the flesh. They're in the natural. The natural man receiveth not the things of God. They're foolishness to them. That's why the Bible says that the cross is foolishness to them that perish. The cross is foolishness to the world, guys. Oh, another man dying for my sins. What does that have to do with me 2,000 years ago? How does that affect me today? Well, because they're not seeing the spiritual application as well, how the physical and the spiritual are connected. So the cross is foolishness to them. Right? It's all foolishness to them. They can't get it. It's not that they just don't get it. They can't get it. It's not possible for them to get it. That's right. That's right. Jesus is Lord. That the fallen ones also mated with animals. They did. They corrupted the animal kingdom as well. I think that's a lot of what we see today, in fact, in the animal kingdom. Why you see these animals that don't make any sense, like the mongoose. It was probably created in a lab. A lot of these animals are not probably not from God, probably not natural. You see animals that don't make any sense, right? You say, well, where does this stuff come from? Oh, just evolution. That's what the world says. But we know that this genetic technology has been around since the beginning, from the fallen ones. So how much of that was used thousands of years ago and still being used today for animals? What are they doing today? Well, they're crossing, like goats with spiders and monkeys and stuff like this. They're doing crazy stuff in labs. Who knows what? So who knows how much of this animal? A lot of people don't believe dinosaurs are real. Possibly, maybe. And if they were real, which I'm not sure, then a lot of them, like the T-Rex, doesn't make sense. Let's talk about the T-Rex for a second. That's fine. So the T-Rex doesn't make any sense. Okay. And I'm going to show you why. You guys probably already realize this. Even though Jurassic Park was one of my favorite movies, I can turn this video camera off right now and watch Jurassic Park 1. Only one, because I really enjoyed it. You know, oh well, entertainment. What, you know, it is what it is. Good acting, right? Whatever. But if you look at the T-Rex, okay, you don't make no sense. It doesn't make sense that he would work, okay? Yeah, he's got like a body like this, and then he's got like a leg, right? It's gonna look bad. It's gonna look bad, right? And then he's got like an not too bad. Got like another leg in the background, and then you got like this, right? Oh, then you got like this head that goes like this, right? Oh, right? Got a little. He looks pregnant, huh? So this T-Rex looks pretty bad, but look. And then he goes up like this, right? You know, his mouth is like this, something like that, right? So the thing that doesn't make any sense on the T-Rex, why it doesn't make sense, because little arms. He got these little arms. He's got like a midget arms, right? So he's got these. If he fell over, he ain't getting back up. He can't. He can only push out the ground a few feet from his little arms. So the T-Rex don't even make no sense. Right? It's like, how does that work? So again, a lot of people don't think that dinosaurs are real. And I think it's a possibility. You know? And this would be called a vestigial structure or vessel. I think, right? Vestigial structure, vestigial vessel. In other words, it's an item, or I don't know if they call it vestigial or not, but it's an item on the body that is not used for anything. No, I don't think they call it a vestigial structure though. But look at it. It just don't make no sense. A little T-Rex with these little arms. He can't get up. If he falls over, he can't get up. Right? He can't get up. They just make this stuff up, man. Right? That's the T-Rex for you. So like he falls over, he could push off the ground maybe what? Maybe like that high? Well, how's he going to get up for the rest of his body, right? He's going to have to maneuver somehow. Right? Nah, it don't make no sense. So yeah, maybe dinosaurs didn't exist, or maybe they built them in a lab. They could have created dinosaurs in a lab with genetics and stuff. I'm sure they could have done that. You know? Another creation of the fallen ones. You know, when you look at the animal kingdom, it's like, again, man, it's like, I don't think God made it like this. I think there's a little more going on here, you know. But when you start unlocking these keys, right? So when you start unlocking these keys, right? You start to see picture. That's what God is doing over the years with me and with you guys. That, you know, every now and then you're unlocking doors, you're unlocking keys to this huge picture. So that you're figuring out, it's like a giant riddle. The Illuminati know a lot, you know, they know a lot more than us. But we're piecing all this together. So like, if you came along, like most unbelievers do, that, you know, the cross is foolishness to them. If you came along and you said, you looked at dinosaurs and somebody said, well, maybe they were created in a lab, right? Somebody would be like, you're an idiot. What are you talking about? A lab? All this technology just is new. See, because they don't have that piece of the puzzle yet that the fallen ones taught man from the beginning, this genetic tampering, this genetic knowledge. So it's all keys, and it's all connected to each other. Right? When you're looking at this piece of the puzzle, something over here is going to help you figure this one out, right? And then you look at like all things, right? Like the Book of Enoch talks about certain things in detail and all kinds of things. Not right now, Michael.
Too loud. But anyways, thank you guys. You know, we hit a lot of subjects here. Talked about a lot of things. God said, sons of this world, because we are innocent minded. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, the giants are real, man. The giants are real. In the Bible, it says that the giants are as tall as cedars. If you look up how tall, if you look up, thanks, Michael. Huh? Quiet, man. If you look up a cedar tree is over 100 foot tall. Is over 100 foot. Over 100 feet tall. And the Bible says they were as the cedar trees. So the giants were at least 100 foot. Right? But then when you get to the book of Enoch, it says that they were way bigger than that. It says they were 3,000 ells. Ells. So in the book of Enoch, 3,000 ells, I forgot what an ell was. But the book of Enoch basically says the giants were almost a mile high. Almost a mile high, like the movies. I don't doubt it. That's very possibly where they got all that stuff from. See? And then if you look at the petrified mountains, they say that they're petrified giants, a lot of them. And you can see faces in them and stuff like this. And even the Native American, all civilizations have stories of giants. You know, stories of giants eating people. You know, and the movies today have giants. Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman, right? Jack and the Beanstalk. You know, and then what is the guy, what is the giant always trying to do? He's trying to eat Jack, right? Well, that's in the book of Enoch. It says that the giants ate people, right? And so who makes all the cartoons and the movies? The Illuminati. You know, and they show us in Jurassic Park the genetic tampering that they have. Yeah, right. And so, and my cousin in the background making some stupid noises. So, you know, in the movie Jurassic Park, they show you that one part where they show you how they made the dinosaurs. They got the little mosquito, and then from the mosquito they extracted like a sample of DNA, right? And in the mosquitoes used to suck on the dinosaurs, so the mosquitoes had dinosaur blood preserved in them, and it was petrified, so or whatever, I don't know, so they sucked it out of the mosquito, they got the dinosaur blood because the mosquito ate the dinosaur blood, and then from that dinosaur blood they created these dinosaurs. Is that possible? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Okay, I'm pretty sure they can do that. So are they telling us what they're doing? Yeah, probably. You know, but I mean, it's in the movies. Like I've shown you guys, everything is in the movies. Everything. It's just scattered around. You know, it's thousands of movies to go off of. And once you figure out, like, oh, they're telling us truths in these movies. Maybe it's not all true, but a lot of this is true, right? And then we look at the Bible, and we look at other scriptures, like the book of Enoch, if you want, whatever. And the book of Jasher, if you want, you know, whatever. And we see that history, that truth is actually stranger than fiction. Because what we think are fiction, these movies, is actually the truth. A lot of it. So it's crazy, man. This is the Matrix. This is the Matrix. Okay? No, I was never in the Navy. Don't pay attention to the jacket, the pea coat. Nah, I just like the pea coat. Lizard people, yeah. Look at this. Look at this. In the movie with Will Ferrell, you know, the funny comedian actor. It's a funny movie. I think it was a funny movie. The Lost, what is it? The Lost World, or the Last Land Before Time, or the Land of the Lost. Land of the Lost with Will Ferrell, the comedy. You know, he talks to the lizard people, and he's like, yeah, man, we're so smart. They're so stupid, right? Will Ferrell, and he's laughing with the lizard people. Well, that's what people are saying, right? Like,
well, if Satan was a serpent, or had some serpent values to the reptile kingdom, maybe possibly. He has all this wisdom, and then Will Ferrell's like buddy buddy with the lizard people, saying we're so smart, they're so dumb. Well, that's like the serpent, right? The lizard people, right? And man linking up together with this knowledge, this wisdom. Oh, we're so smart. So they show you these deep truths in comedies, right? Like with Will Ferrell, and people were just laughing at it, not realizing, like, wait a second, where did I hear this from? Like, who has serpentine values, like reptilian value? Oh, that's the devil. That's the serpent in the garden. Oh, what did he give man? Wisdom, right? Knowledge, secret knowledge. So what's going on in this comedy movie? Well, that's what they're saying. Will Ferrell's laughing with the lizard people. We're so smart. It's like it's going back to the garden, right? It's like, but they do it in a way. They do it in a way where most people don't catch it. Of course, if you're not in the mind of Christ, you're not going to catch these things, right? You're not going to see it. And if somebody points it out to you, you're going to be like, it's foolishness, right? Because these things are foolishness to the world, right? Because the wisdom of the world is foolishness to God. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Wisdom 83. That's interesting. Right. So it says that the serpent was cursed to eat the dust of the ground, right? Well, it's interesting that man was made of what? Dust. Oh, there we go. So the serpent was cursed by God to eat the dust of the ground all the days of his life. Well, what's the dust of the ground? Who was made of that? Oh, man. Man was made of the dust of the ground. So, yeah, do I believe that's what we see with all this stuff coming out? The cannibalism, right? So there you go. These people are doing what Satan does. Cannibalism, right? And that's all the way in the beginning of the Bible. Cursed to eat the dust of the ground, the serpent is. Man is made of the dust of the ground. Hence, now we see everything coming out that all these people are cannibals. Where does that come from? The serpent in the beginning, the garden. So, why? Because they're following the way of Satan. So they're doing what he does. There you go, man. So, yeah. Yeah. Right. Dinos on the earth, right? Bloodthirsty, absolutely. Right, so like Kent Hovind teaches that Noah took dinosaurs on the ark and stuff like this, and it's like, I wasn't there. How many years ago was that? Like over 4,000 years ago. So did Noah take little baby dinosaurs on the ark? Dude, I don't know. I'm not worried about it, dude. But people like Kent Hovind, who actually turned out to be a really bad person, if you look up Theodore's channel. But the video got taken down. His channel was called Lies of the Devil. He exposed Ken Hovind and all his evil ways. But it's like, dude, that guy built his ministry off of something that might not even be true. And he rejects true biblical cosmology, which is flat earth. And he says that we're all flying on a ball, spinning through outer space, nonsense. And again, he's one of those guys that even if he believed that he was wrong, he wouldn't change anyways. Because that guy makes millions and millions and millions off of people. People send him so much money. And his whole ministry is based off of probably lies, like dinosaurs were on the ark. Maybe, but maybe not. And also the lie of, spinning through space on a ball. A lot of his ministry is like an illusion. It's not even truth. And the guy's a bad guy anyways. If you look at Lies of the Devil video, but it was taken down a while back. A lot of people have exposed Ken Hovind for being such a bad person. I'm not even going to get into the things he did. I used to listen to Ken Hovind when I was first waking up. I used to think he was brilliant until I realized that he's the opposite of that because he's actually teaching nonsense. He's teaching false cosmology. He steals things from people. And he's like a bad person. So I got over him real quick. I think he's possibly a mind control agent, right? I think he's a plant. I think Ken Hovind is a plant. I think he was mind controlled, MK Ultra, and he looks exactly like Jim Jones. If you put it side by side with Ken Hovind and Jim Jones, if you remember Jim Jones, who was that massacre with all the people uh, like a few years back, while back, more than a few years. He looks exactly like Jim Jones. And again, I don't know if Ken Hovine's a clone or what, but they look exactly the same. And a lot of these people, who are, or who are pushing lies in Christianity, false cosmology, and other things like this. A lot of these people are mind control victims. They were put in Christianity for this purpose. To deceive Christians, and that's what he is. If somebody's making a lot of money off of their ministry or whatever, that's not really my problem. I don't really have a problem with that necessarily if they're doing the right things as far as teaching the right things, right? Like if Ken Hovind was making all these millions of dollars, but he actually taught true biblical cosmology, flat Earth, and they actually bring out truths like, well, dinosaurs might not be real, and we don't honestly know if dinosaurs were on the ark. And if he didn't steal things from people, and if he was honest, I wouldn't care if people make millions off their ministry. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me. It's not bad. It's not wrong to make millions. It's not wrong um, to make money off your ministry. But it is, but that comes with the clause, and the clause is as long as you're being honest, as long as you're not rejecting truth, as long as, and when the truth comes out, you gravitate and teach towards the truth. As long as you're doing that. But these people aren't doing that, you know. And I'm sure I don't know if Ken Hovind actually. I think he does. He believes that 1948 was actually the nation of Israel when it's not. It's just a political state. That's not actually the people. It's Khazarians, all this stuff. So I don't know if he. So he's also pushing that uh, false thing as well. And again, if somebody makes $50 million off of people donating out of their hearts, I don't care. But what are they teaching? That's what I really care about. Are you telling them the truth? No, you're teaching work salvation, right? Or you're teaching false cosmology, or you're teaching false Israel doctrine, right? Or whatever the case may be. That's what I'm concerned about. If you're not changing according to the enlightenment of what is really true, that's what I'm worried about. So how much money a person makes, well, it depends what they teach. And from what I've seen out there, and here's the truth. Here's the truth. From what I see, from what I know, even my experience, the people who are telling you guys the unfiltered truth, the people that are showing you the unfiltered truth, the deep things of God, don't get hardly any money at all. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying this is the way it is. You see these people who throw out these mathematical equations, amazing calculations from the Bible that should be shouted from rooftops everywhere, but they got these little tiny channels, right? They got these little tiny channels. They live a simple life, and they don't make millions off of people because it just doesn't work like that, I guess. Okay? And me too, but I'm not talking about myself really. I'm just talking about in general. The people who are bringing you the truth, which are very few, because not a lot of people have all the corners of this truth, right? Like all these deceptions figured out, right? Some people have some of them, you know, and but again, the people who are telling you these things, they're not the ones with the millions of dollars usually. Usually that's usually the case. They're the ones who are doing it not for the money. Money comes in, that's cool, man. But and I'm sure the people would be appreciative, but they're not doing it for that cause. When I started making videos on YouTube, my first year, you can scroll down, my first year in videos, every now and then a video would take off, but the majority of my videos, first year and a half actually, were like 50 to 150 views for putting out a video every day. But that wasn't what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for views or likes or money. I mean, I would be grateful for all those things or shares, but I was doing it because, in my mind, I was being led to think, look, you put out the information and God will do what he wants with it. As long as you just put it out there, just get it out there. Don't look at the numbers. Don't base anything on that. Just put it out there and it's going to be used. How it's going to be used, that's not in your control. And that's what I've been doing for 9 years. I started on Instagram and now I'm on YouTube. So that's what I see.
Hello, Alpha Omega. Right. Exactly. So there's scientific truth to that. Uh,
Our bodies are literal receptors. So, like, just think of the body as kind of like a cell phone, right? Like, our bodies are literal receptors, like magnetic pulses, magnetic frequencies, vibrations, all these things in the invisible that we can see. Literally, that's what is going on in the invisible realm. Um, but it's all invisible, see? And so, like, God's spirit can be all over a person, but you can't see it, right? But that person can kind of have an understanding of it, like God said. He says, "Those that are led by the Spirit of God are the sons of God." Well, how does that all work? Well, that's literal. There's some type of leading going on that you can't see. Well, it's because God's Spirit is a power. So when we think of that in scientific terms, it could be like magnetic or a frequency or all quantum physics, things that are going on in the invisible to lead a person, to open a person's eyes. There's literal truth to that, you know? And those things are not just poetic things. Oh, those that are led by the Spirit of God are the sons of God. Everything in the Bible is not just poetic, it's scientific as well. It's scientific as well. Just like you can see infrared and stuff like this. They can see magnetic pulses, military devices, and stuff like this. Why do they have the voice of God technology? They have voice of God technology. How did they figure that out? Because they figured out this invisible realm stuff. How did they figure out infrared? What is infrared? Well, that's going based off heat, right? So they have this stuff figured out. There is a literal, scientific, measurable, whatever you want to call it. I don't know exactly what it is, magnetic pull or frequency or vibration that leads us, that guides us, that not only comes from the outside in, but that comes from the inside out, right? And this is how it's done. The Bible is scientific. We just don't understand that science, but there are people who do, like the Illuminati and stuff like this. And to get a little glimpse of that, you look into the military weaponry. Night vision, right? Infrared, radar tracking, all these things. Just imagine that, just even on a higher level. And that's what's going on to us, right? To us. Being led by the Spirit of God or being attacked by, demonic forces. I'm sure they can see these things with technology. These are real things, scientific things.
so yeah, there's a lot more going on here. It's in the invisible. The age of grace has definitely come to an end. The blue angels. It's interesting they call them blue angels. The color blue is the color for the third eye, the pineal gland. So who knows, right? So this video has been really long, but that's cool. Yeah, everything in this world is running out of frequency. I'm pretty sure that's true. You know. Anyways, guys, thank you guys for joining me. I just want to do a little talking, sharing. God bless.